Hello, fellow concerned neighbors. Tracy Conyers here. This is the Concerned for Westchester Playa newsletter in video format. It was a busy week in our community, and there is so much to be concerned about. First off, save the date. Coming up next week on the 1st, our community plan update planning team is presenting to our neighborhood council. The agenda will be posted on Saturday, September 28th. Find it on the NC website. Next, what did Sacramento just do to us? Again. I took a dive last weekend into what our legislature was up to in the term that just ended in the realm of housing density and other quality of life impacts. 23 bills in this area were passed this last term. As of today, 6 are still waiting for signature by the governor. Monday is the last day for him to sign. I'm not an expert on the topic of legislative process, but I am a former complex business litigation attorney who's been following this topic extremely closely for the last 7 years. I'll drop a link in the show notes wherever you're watching this video so that you can find the website where you can look at the bills, read their language, and look at their history, including their voting history. Let me also say that I might have missed 1 or 2 bills. Not every bill follows a straight line. Drop a comment if you know of one I missed or have a question about one listed or not listed on the chart that you can find also in the show notes. You might wonder why I'm talking about Sacramento bills when we all came together around local upzoning here in Los Angeles. The answer is simple. The dramatic upzoning demands we are all fighting against come directly from policy activism in Sacramento. I attended the Ladera Community Plan Update community meeting week before last, and when listening to the commenters, I found that there was a huge misunderstanding in the community about where these crazy numbers come from. That misunderstanding about who controls the upzoning numbers prompted me to write this week's newsletter, record this video, and make a presentation to last week's Community Plan Update ad hoc committee about the recent legislative activity for this year. Yes, the city has some discretion in how they parcel out LA's mandated numbers, but the city has zero discretion in missing the targets. There are severe consequences for missing targets, and the consequences were made even worse this past legislative term. Since approximately 2016, when ADUs were first approved at the state level, our legislature has been on an aggressive push to densify our state and get rid of cars. I remember in 2017 arguing with another lawyer on Twitter about whether we should even have cars. As soon as I pointed out to her that she in San Francisco would not want me in Los Angeles dictating how or whether to use a car, she just shut up. I mean, honestly, it makes zero sense to have anybody, including our state legislators, usurping local land use control and creating one-size-fits-all rules for a state as large and diverse as California. But then it really does make sense when you think about it. There are far less state-level legislators for developers to influence, and we, the humble citizens, only get to vote for one senator and one assembly person. So our ability to influence state-level policy is severely constrained. Did you know that we don't even need all these market rate units the developers are pushing for? People are fleeing the state of California in record numbers. Prior to 2021, California had never seen even 1 year of population decline since 1900. Between April 2020 and July 2022, we lost more residents than 44 other states. Some sources even say that we lost more than 48 other states. We added a modest number of residents back the next year, but nobody is predicting that we need the number of market rate units the state is inflicting on us. In fact, our population is currently projected to be the same in 2060 as today. That's almost 40 years away. Who's going to live in all these market rate units? And I'm still annoyed that the housing mandates for the current housing cycle running 2021 to 2029, the housing mandates that we're fighting were pushed out by the California Department of Housing and Community Development ahead of the census numbers in 2020. That just goes to show you that need is not part of the equation in the least. This agenda is being pushed by the developer lobby and their very organized network of YIMBY groups. Yet here we are looking at more massive upzoning after the last session with people fleeing our state. And the people leaving are the best of our tax base and those who we need to keep in California to fund the infrastructure improvements to support this crazy density. Yes, we have an affordability crisis. No, we do not have a housing crisis. We don't have a need for more market rate units based on our outward migration trends and population predictions. And speaking of those outbound trends, California gave up a seat in the House after the last census, and we underwent a pretty drastic redistricting process. That was our first loss of a seat since statehood in 1850. Our former senator still represents West Westchester and North Playa del Rey, but the rest of us got a new senator and a new assembly person. I noted their votes on all of these housing bills on my chart, the one that you'll find the link to in the show notes, and it looks to me like they are all good party players towing the line on density, but worse, they pretty much uniformly sold us out on coastal protections. I won't go over every one of the bills, but I did list them on the chart I mentioned in the order of relative impact on our lives, in my humble opinion. Notably, requirements for affordable units were hugely diminished. Why? Affordable units are exactly what we need. That's despicable. CEQA review was done away with for affordable unit projects, even for projects with known health impacts. Who are these Democrats and what do they do with their common sense and empathy? Homeless housing is being added to the mandates coming up, but with no financial assistance or social services required. Let me repeat that again because that's huge. We will have quotas for homeless housing units we have to build, most likely on the west side for reasons I can't get into in this video, but nobody is going to pay for it and no social services will be provided to that population. This is what's known as an unfunded mandate, and under current rules, we will have no say where this housing is built. This is going to mess with our community plan update big time. But wait, there's more. Road diets are set to become the rule of the land now, or at least the land of California. We know a thing or two about road diets here in Westchester Playa. Also, the unit mandates, also known as the Regional Housing Needs Assessment or RHNA numbers, are getting harsher, and the consequences for missing the targets are getting more punitive after this last session. I could go on and on about these bills, but honestly, it just depresses me. There was one bill calling for reform of the RHNA numbers, but it died in appropriations as too expensive. In fact, a lot of bills died this year because of the cost with the state of our outbound migration and loss of tax base. But losing this particular bill was a serious blow for any kind of reasonable density going forward. I also need to mention that a proposed constitutional amendment also passed the last term, making it part of our state constitution that there is a right to housing, and specifically that this could include land use policies that remove barriers to housing production by zoning for more housing. Obviously, this is huge. The amendment is on the November ballot, and we haven't heard a peep about it. This is going to be ugly if passed. Seriously, what I'm saying to you is that amendment, if passed, is basically a mandate to do away with R1 zoning so that everybody can have a place to live right here on the west side. When I presented last week to the CPU ad hoc committee on this legislative deep dive, I asked the committee to please invite our 2 senators and our assembly person to come to a meeting and explain to us exactly who we're building these units for. The legislature is throwing our quality of life in the toilet with zero explanation who's going to live in all of these market rate units and why they voted to cut the number of affordable units required by half. Please spend some time reviewing the chart of the bills and understanding what just happened to us. These bills represent important developments. Please review them. We all need to understand what's going on. And for the third important topic, let's talk about the Planning Commission hearing this past Thursday regarding the housing element. The community plan update is just one portion of the housing element. There's also another portion that impacts the whole city, not just our community. That big portion is the CHIP Ordinance, which is the menu of builder incentives, making it financially attractive to build high-density projects. CHIP stands for Citywide Housing Incentive Programs. The first draft of CHIP included R1 lots as eligible for incentives. There was a lot of pushback on this by R1 homeowners. Sadly, in our community, we were too busy working with surprises to the community plan update to even know what this housing element thing was. Fortunately, our friends at United Neighbors fought on our behalf and on behalf of all R1 homeowners citywide, and R1 was dropped from CHIP with draft 2. We thought we dodged a bullet. I attended the public hearing for draft number 2 and was absolutely shocked to hear the lead planner literally inviting people to convince the planners why R1 should go back into the ordinance. I had an opportunity to give public comments supporting the R1 exemption along with some of our neighbors, but we only represented about 10% of the comments. I was definitely sweating bullets from the end of that meeting until the time that the third draft dropped. Draft number 3 came out week before last, and R1 was still not in the recommendations, but the report issued only 10 days before the Planning Commission hearing and with only 8 days of commenting, included an appendix with a menu of 8 ways the commission could add R1 back in. The public hearing was just this past Thursday. It was 8 hours of pain, with primarily young people and builders demanding R1 come back in. I was able to get this statement on the record. My name is Tracy Thrower Conyers, and I represent a block of over 1,000 homeowners in Westchester Playa. I've attended every public hearing regarding CHIP, and every time I hear a litany of complaints from misinformed people who think it is some kind of moral imperative to obliterate our mature R1 neighborhoods with high-rise market rate units. These commenters will not be able to afford these units, but our retirement nest eggs will be at risk of plummeting in value as we become surrounded by high-rises with no parking. Do we really have to steal from one group to give it to another to meet our fairness and construction goals? The planning department's own report says no. yet they seek to rezone R1 at every step in this process. The only winners with R1 in CHIP are the developers. You all on the Planning Commission know this. Please do the right thing and exclude R1 from CHIP. We are already doing our part with ADUs and SB9. A handful of speakers on Zoom where I was were able to speak, but they limited Zoom comments to 30 minutes after hearing hours of in-person testimony, and many on our side were not able to be heard. Fortunately, the Commission approved the recommendations without R1, but expressly invited the City Council to take up the topic of whether we should undo R1 to heal past redlining harms. I mean, what? Most of us did not buy our properties under redlining. This just makes me crazy when people stand up and say that the people who are benefiting now should make up for the harms of the past. Obviously, we bought under one set of rules, and now they're trying to change the rules. Is this right? It's going to be an all-hands-on-deck situation for anybody who is invested in their single-family home under the one set of rules they're trying to change. Please make sure you share this video with 10 friends at least in Los Angeles who understand that a huge attempted wealth redistribution is at hand, one that will greatly hurt single-family homeowners who bought under. Next, the fight is headed to the Plum Committee and then on to the City Council. There is a deadline of February for the city to finalize this housing element and the CHIP ordinance. So I expect the Plum Committee hearing to be coming up soon. I will put out another video with next steps as they are formulated. Okay, my content authenticity statement. This is for the AI bots and you too. 100% of this week's newsletter was generated by me, Tracy Thrower Conyers. No AI here, and if I add any, I will tell you. Until next time, be well and share this video far and wide with other homeowners in Los Angeles. We have a big fight coming up on our hands.